Welcome back to the Lazy Teacher Podcast. My name is Brian Pulowski. This is episode 62, Ask a Principal. In this episode, I had a good friend of mine, Mr. Thomas Gronotte, come in on the show. We talked a lot about a bunch of questions that you guys sent in regarding PBIS, bullying in the classroom, maybe an awkward moment that he's had as a principal. We hit a whole bunch of stuff, lots of fun. It's always a pleasure to have him in the studio. Love the guy, and he's definitely going to come back. You guys are going to fully be into this episode. Unfortunately, as it turned out, my storage on the camera filled up. So right around 15 minutes, it's just going to boop, cut out. But, you know, that's all we can do. So we got 15 minutes of video, but if you're listening, you got full audio the entire way. And if you're watching this on YouTube, we're still going to run it fully through, past the video portion of it. It'll just be audio after that. Excellent interview. Like I said, I love the guy and I had a great time. So without further ado, here's a good friend of mine and awesome principal, Mr. Thomas Gronotte. Sweet. You ready then?
I was born ready.
All right, cool. And we're live. How you doing, Tom?
Hey, good to see you
Mr. Thomas
again.
Gronotte, back in studio.
Back in the studio. Looking good. Since the last time I was here, the studio's changed slightly. You've done a little upgrade with the carpeting and
He's giving me a hard time. I have remnant carpet, and if I count, I'm sure it's about 4 different shades, but
hey, it's warm. That's all that counts.
It is a little nice in here. I'm wondering what it'll be like in the summertime, though. Almost too hot, but we'll see.
You might need a little bit of circulation. Yeah.
To figure out some ventilation.
Yeah. Nice background. The tree looks good. That's like an old tree right there.
Yeah.
Looks good. I like the lights. It's much different than the last time I was here, and upgrading. Hey, I think it was like 13 episodes ago that I was here.
I meant to look back at what episode number it was.
I think it was like 48 or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
But it's, how did it go? How did people receive our almost marathon?
Yep.
Was it the longest one ever?
That might have been the longest one. The one with Echo was pretty long too, but I think yours was the longest. Ironically or coincidentally, it's 2 principals. You guys like to talk.
Well, I don't know. It's easy. You're easy to talk to, and there's a lot of things to talk about. And we hadn't, with the change of schools as I left LaSalle and now at Bethune Elementary, there's things to talk about.
I was talking to Heather Campbell, our instructional coach, and she was showing me, I think, was it pictures or an email she got of what teachers are saying about having you as their new principal.
You saw that?
Yeah, of course I saw that.
When did you see that? That was like yesterday.
Yeah, she's so I meet with her. We do like a coaching cycle, so she's, helping me be a better teacher, which
and
is
she's
awesome.
A great person to help.
She's the perfect person for that.
Yeah.
So we were talking about you, and I said, yeah, hey, Mr. G's going to be coming in, and she's all excited. And she's like, oh, his staff, they're so excited about him, and these are all these cool things. And now we actually get time to meet for PLC, and we get to do this. And sorry, I can't remember everything she said.
Yeah, lots of she talked a little bit about that and PBIS, positive behavior intervention systems. I have 2 teachers that are Valverde Unified has a leadership academy, and it's a selected few. I think they only take like 15 prospective or people who are interested in getting into administration, and our district kind of holds its own little professional development. And I have 2 teachers that applied and got accepted to the Leadership Academy. So they were there. Heather's there, and there are other good folks there. And so,
are they touring your campus, or are they on your campus as teachers?
No, they're teachers. They're actually 2 third-grade teachers, and they both are my administrative designees when I'm out. Now in our district, Brian, I don't know if you remember or know this, but in our district now, whenever the principal is going to be gone for either a full day, for school-related business, whatever the case, we have to have an administrator on campus. And the way we do it, if you don't have an assistant principal, is we use designees. Teachers who have their credential or working towards it, who want to get that experience working with, running a school for a day or whatever. If I'm gone to, like last Friday, I was gone to Astro Camp. It's a camp up in Idlewild, a science camp up in Idlewild. And so when I'm gone like that, then we have somebody cover. And I rotate between the two of those. They're Aaron Simmons and Rebecca Figueroa. And I rotate between those two, give them some experience. And so, yeah, they're teachers, and then they just get a sub that day and cover for me while I'm at a meeting or off campus or whatever. So it's pretty cool. Yeah, so they both got accepted into that leadership academy, and I guess they said some nice things about me. I don't know. It's just
last time you were here, I was saying that you should be. I was asking you, do they have like a coaching system for principals or admin?
Yeah.
That's funny that's kind of working out now.
Even back at all my other schools, Triple Crown, LaSalle, you always have those who are interested in going to the next level, whether it's, and sometimes in our case, it's the next level to administration is instructional coach. Some want to be an instructional coach and only coach people and help them get better and help them with their craft. Some use that as a stepping stone to get into an assistant principal or vice principal situation, and then on into a principalship. So it's kind of a progression, and some instructional coaches want to do it, some don't. I have 2 third-grade teachers who are very interested. I always tell everybody, you sure? You sure you want to get into administration? Look, I'm losing my hair. And it's kind of challenging position nowadays. But we have some good people in our district, and I'm really grateful that our district is recognizing, and we do hire outside folks, as when the good ones come along. But there's a lot of good folks inside that we can pull from that can fill those positions. So I hope that I can mentor. I'm trying with Rebecca and Aaron. They're really good. They're really smart. They have a lot of good ideas, and so they're learning from me, and I'm going to try to help them.
I think they're the perfect person to learn from. It is you.
Why? Thank you.
Well,
I don't think everybody would agree with that.
Well, I don't know, and that's okay. And you can't have like a majority of
no, you're never going to have 100% buy-in all the time. But I enjoy helping. I've had I don't know if we mentioned last time, over the years, several assistant principals. A few have gone on to become principals. Others are still in that role.
Yeah.
Some of them have actually working at the high school level. And the high school level, even though they have typically more administrators than the elementary, you have 2 or 3 or maybe even 4 assistant principals at a large comprehensive high school. It's a little more challenging for them to find principalships. We only have 4 high schools, 12 elementary, so it's a little kind of, if you look at the numbers. But some of the guys that have Chris McDonald's one, Lucretia Graham, they are both were my assistant principals.
Yes.
You were there when they were there, and
yes.
And in fact, those 2 are still at Citrus Hill High School. They're both assistant principals there, and so I do what I can to help people along. If they want to listen, they listen. If they want to watch and kind of get some ideas, that's kind of like what the deal. Like when I was a substitute teacher, like way back before I was going through Chapman University at night. But substituting during the day. And what I did, it was great. I think that one year when I was getting my credential, I subbed 140 days out of the 180. And I wanted money, of course, pay for my schooling, but more importantly, the experience. And what I did back then that led me into my teaching was substituting so much. You can pick up this, see, this doesn't work. Hey, this teacher's got a great system for this. So you gather all those things that make the difference and you put them in your tool bag. So when you're ready to get your own classroom, you can kind of not have to, cut through the tall grass. You've been there.
Right.
And the same thing with administration. When you have people working for you, either as administrative designees or assistant principals, hopefully they will learn from you and take some of the things that seem to work as an administrator and take it on to their experience as an administrator. So, But people can only do what they want to do, right? I mean, you can take what you can take. But I hope I'd make an impact on others like that.
Yeah. You win some, you lose some. I can think of, without naming names, there's a couple that I think have gone into admin and then it didn't work out. Mm-hmm. Whether they were under you or they were a teacher and they move up, I think it just doesn't, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, Mm-hmm. I'm going to adjust this mic for you. I'm going to point that right at you. So you get
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you a lot better now.
Okay.
Yeah. So what happened is, I think it was the beginning of the year, you came up to me and you said, it'd be a good idea. Let's put it out to listeners and see if you can get some questions. Was that the beginning of the year? Or was it one of the buyback days from the district? I want to say maybe it was either Christmas
actually,
one.
I think that might
No, it
have
was
been
Christmas. Christmas. We came back from Christmas break.
Yeah.
So I put it out there.
So there's some people that actually listened and want to have me answer.
I think the two people that listened just wrote a lot of questions.
The highest rated show, 2 people listen to Gronotte.
Yeah. Yeah, it is still. I think it's still the highest rated. I gotta look back. Echo gets very competitive when she.
Did she come back on again?
No, but now that you're back, she's like,
she's
I gotta
chomping.
get back. Yeah, yes, for sure. So for this, we're gonna use this really cool program that Tom and I were talking about called Nearpod. And if you're a teacher, Nearpod's pretty sweet. You could upload a slideshow, or you can create it on the website. In my situation, I just created a Google Slides. You upload it onto Nearpod. It's a free program, and then you get to control what the students see. So for this, Mr. G is going to be my student. He's got a laptop in front of him. If you guys are watching, you can see it, and I can control it. So this is just kind of a demonstration, so he could see it. Maybe he'll bring it back to his class or his school to talk to his staff about. And it's kind of helpful because, I'm going to field some questions to him and he can actually see them rather than listening to me and going, wait, hold on, what was the second part of that? So we'll kind of.
So you have control over this and I don't over here?
You do not. So I have two. You have two options.
So what if I don't like the question? I can't sit forward.
You cannot. Yeah, there's two options. It can be student led or it could be teacher led. Okay. In this situation, it's teacher led. So that I'm just going to show you the questions. But yeah, exactly. If you don't like the question,
too bad.
I'm just going to put my thumb down back. Come on.
Just keep answering.
Mm-hmm. And what I thought about it this morning.
What day of the week is this today, anyways?
Today is Saturday.
Saturday?
Yeah.
So you got me on a Saturday here?
I got you on a Saturday.
Trying to think of.
With tough questions. I got to be honest, they're tough. For me.
What?
Well, I mean, they're not going to be for you. You're a great principal, but
that's pressure.
I'm impressed with the level of questioning I got, and I was messaging Tom last night saying, these are higher level questions than I expected. I thought they were just going to be like, what do you do if a teacher? I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know what I expected. So,
yeah.
Are you good to just jump right into this?
Let's try it. I mean, all I can do is, talk.
You're gonna, yeah. Well. Okay, so the first one is about PBIS.
Positive Behavior Intervention Systems.
Yeah, okay. I should have notated who sent these in. I apologize.
Yeah,
I know.
Give someone credit.
I know. So as you're listening or watching,
you better go back.
Message me and let me know, and I'll adjust this for you. So so this is on PBIS. So the question would be, can you explain why the sudden push towards PBIS? And like most things in education, will this likely swing back towards another focus later? I think they're referring to like the whole like pendulum that they say in education. Yeah. It goes one way, it goes the other. Mm-hmm. We'll start with that first one. Why the sudden push towards PBIS?
I think kids need it. I think when you're talking about kids who both parents work, they come to school, and there's a lot of great kids. But there's a lot of kids that kind of fall between the cracks, and if they don't have a support system for them, and I have to be honest, I have 6 kids. They're older now; they're not elementary level. But Brian, I think there are some kids that just aren't getting the support at home, and they need parents who will listen to them. They'll need, and of course nowadays with the way the technology is, kids get their earbud just like us and tune out the world. Then when they have to socialize or when they have to engage or interact with others, sometimes that can be challenging. So there's what I like about what we've done at this Bethune, particularly this year, is the district has a big push for it. And this listener, it sounds like they're having the same kind of push in their district or at their school. And Val Verde is clearly really wanted to have each school implement a system that can support kids. And when you support kids, that means you're talking about not only the social aspect, the behavioral aspect, but also that kind of gets down to closing the gap for their academics. Mm-hmm. And when you have interventions, when you have the ability to meet with students or in small groups, one school in our district has a PBIS coordinator, and they get to actually stay at the site. We don't have one. It's me and a teacher. At my school I have a great site coordinator, Giovanna Natividad. and she's fantastic. But I just think, in general, it's a guide to help kids. I think it's an opportunity to reach out. We want to produce a 21st century learner, and to do that, you have to reach all aspects of the kids. It's not just academics. And there's reasons sometimes why kids who don't perform academically that we have to address. We have to find out. So having systems in place like we have at Bethune, we call it the clause, extend our clause. The C stands for, I don't know if I talked about this last time, but it's care for everyone. The L, lead the way. The A is attitude is everything. W is work hard, and the S is stay safe. And so that's embedded throughout the school. Posters and all that. Posters don't make a program. People do.
Right.
It's people, not programs. But it's nice to have these things in. It's just behavior expectations. How is a student supposed to behave in the MPR, the multi-use room? How are they supposed to behave, walking to the library or in the library? So I think that's a great idea. I'm really engaged in it, and I'm into it because we have this system in place. At Bethune, they did not last year. In fact, we just had a rating, and we went from, I think, like 20-some% last year when they come around and kind of do to 70%. So in our first year, we've just made leaps and bounds.
This would be a good time to see her follow-through hits that. She said, I live in Arizona and honestly feel like our behavior hasn't improved at all starting 3 years ago. Other than the data our school is reflecting improvement, but none of us teachers truly see it. So I'm not saying that's accurate, but I think this teacher is coming from the saying PBIS is producing this data showing improvement, but I don't know if it's frustration or saying like the teacher, they're not seeing it.
They don't feel it.
They don't feel it. It's like it just shows on paper, which maybe makes the school look good.
And there is data trackers. We have a system that kind of tracks the number of suspensions. I mean, ideally, you want to try to reduce the number of suspensions. You want to keep kids in school so they have the opportunity to learn. I'm curious. I'd like to ask your listener a few questions about her thoughts there. 3 years. Kind of haven't noticed much of a difference. Is that because there's not enough buy-in from the staff? Is it a leadership thing? Is it what kind of clientele? What's the community? What's it been like? Has it just been where the kids have just been feisty, for lack of a better phrase, all along?
Yeah.
What is it? But I know at my school with my leadership and the buy-in that we have at our staff, and I'm not saying that they didn't buy in. Who knows the reasons? There's got to be some follow-up to her or him. But I know at our school it's made a difference. And the way I know that is not necessarily through the data. What we notice, what I hear, is from our recess coaches. Mr. G, last year kids were swinging from the trees. Now they have this expectation. And it could be part of me, just in me and my leadership. But it's also the expectations of what we're following through, and what we expect kids to how we expect them to behave here, there, and each of the spots. So I get my data from feedback from parents. I stand out at dismissal every day, waving, saying goodbye. Parents constantly are saying, Mr. G, love what you're doing, love the difference. My kid's happy. And think about that. Just your child coming to school and being happy, not having to worry about maybe a bully. And this takes care of some of those kinds of issues.
Okay.
So when your parents are happy, that feedback is amazing. When you hear it from the employees, your teachers saying, you know what? Now I'm not focused on having to discipline the kids. And yes, there's discipline. I mean, this is not utopia ever in public education. But when you implement a program and have the expectations and follow through with it, recognize positive behaviors, like I think I was sharing with you last time, we have the positive office referrals. Remember the little stickers that we would put on, the little paw sticker? Mm-hmm. So when you're recognizing and reinforcing behaviors, kids like that. If you're only a school that's recognizing and acknowledging negative behaviors, then that breeds negativity. So I get my feedback, and there is the data that comes from the coordinator. I get my data from teachers, students, parents, and other employees, and that's how I operate. And I know if I'm being successful, and also where we need to make adjustments. Mr. G, their kids aren't. When they're coming from after the teachers guide them to the cafeteria, they get their food tray. They're coming out, they're running all over the place. Okay, so then we have to make an adjustment if we in that case. So I think it's a positive thing for kids so we can dig a little deeper, get the well-rounded child, and implementation is based on those implementing.
Right.
You know,
If you're not utilizing it the right way, you might not get the results.
if you don't talk about it,
3 years does seem like a long time, though.
yeah,
to
they
make,
should they
to
should
make
be
a
seen.
change.
Yeah, that is a long time. So I'm curious about the whole situation. But I know that after just a few months at this school, they were craving a system to help them, so we can support them as teachers, as educators, so they can teach kids and watch them learn and grow. But also for the kids to have them. It's not just school rules. It's not like, okay, you can't run on the playground. That's not what PBIS is at all.
No.
It's not even close to that. But it's getting to know kids and providing opportunities for them, for us to intervene so they head down the right track. And I think it's working.
I think it sets expectations is the main thing for students. It's like, and I'll tell my students, if I just told you I want you to walk in the room and do what I'm thinking, but you don't know what I'm thinking to do it correctly, then you're not going to do it the right way. So what if I tell you exactly the correct way to do it, and then we can talk about good ways of doing that? Okay, what should we do if you don't do that? And then I think you just break it down for that. I like PBIS. I mean, just to answer it myself, I think it is effective in education, but you're right. If it's not utilized the right way, then yeah, you're not going to get the outcome.
I think there's a lot of people who have, we want to help kids. And when you come to a classroom, you go into a classroom or a teacher comes and says, Mr. G, I'm struggling with student X. And we talk about it and start digging a little deeper as to what are some of the issues and what's inhibiting or providing barriers for this student to learn. And sometimes it's home life. I mean, there's a lot of kids who go through a lot of stuff that that typically we don't know about. It's like, I didn't know that kid, we deal with people the parents who are incarcerated, students who are living with grandparents 2 or 3 generations away, it's a different cup of tea. So whatever we can do to kind of hone in, to intervene, to provide opportunities, provide outlets, to provide a role model. I mean, think of some of the kids how they respond to you as one of the few male teachers at LaSalle Elementary. There's me and one other person at my school as a male role model. So sometimes it's just kids hearing from a different perspective because they don't have it at home.
Correct.
And so I think it has high value. I know our district, and I'm not saying that because our district places high value on it. Anytime we could find out and engage and you know what it all comes down to also? One of the 3 R's that I've always talked about. The 3 R's that I refer to often as relationships, rapport, and rigor. And the relationship piece, if you can get to know your second graders and you see little Sammy struggling and why, and as you build that relationship and you can dig deeper and maybe peel through some of those layers, that's what behavior intervention is all about. And that's what we need to do to help all kids.
That's good.
Yeah. The second part of that is, is it going to come full circle? I mean, I think back to when I first started teaching, it was whole language. And this was a long time ago, 30 some years ago. Whole language. Read the literature book and then talk about it, ask questions, as opposed to the old way of breaking it down, phonics, phonemic awareness, going from parts to whole versus now whole language, whole to part. And that came full circle. I mean, my first 3 years in teaching, it was whole language, and all of a sudden, whoops, look at some of the assessments, some of the data, and all of a sudden, maybe we need to teach these kids a different way. Right. So with PBIS, I think any time that we could, I think, again, it's the district philosophy. What's the district's direction and vision with it? And I know our district's heavy into it, so I don't think in our particular district that it's going to kind of just die off. I think there's a need for kids to be recognized as far as how we can help them make their way through this world of education.
Yeah,
and get ready
I
for
do.
society.
I think it's going to stick around for a while.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to this next one.
All right, PBIS, done.
This one is school to prison pipeline. So I actually wasn't terribly familiar with this. What this is I looked it up. It says in the United States, the school to prison pipeline, they call it SPP, everything's an acronym, also known as a school to prison link or the schoolhouse to jailhouse track, is the disproportionate tendency of minors and young adults from disadvantaged backgrounds to become incarcerated because of increasingly harsh and municipal policies. So the question was, what are your thoughts on the school to prison pipeline? Are you actively doing anything to try and alleviate this?
Well, I think this just relates totally to the first question that we were just talking about, the PBIS.
That's why I put them together.
Hey, that's why he's the host, everybody. It makes the connection, makes it easy for me.
Hey.
Or easier, I don't know if easy. Honestly, this is interesting because in my head, when I was a middle school teacher, a long time ago, when I first started many, many years ago, you could see, way before PBI, I mean, it was just back then, it was just teach, build a relationship, get to know the family as best you can, a different cup of tea, way different. So back then, I mean, there were some kids who I would look at and go, holy guacamole, I can see the path down your head, the path you're headed down. And then I always did everything I could, even back then, and it wasn't called positive behavior interventions. It was just called common sense. Let's help a kid. But I have to say, I had several kids that through those middle school years, and what happens, they get hooked up with the wrong crowd, and that kind of thing. I don't know. I mean, back then, at least to me, it was more gang-affiliated type relationships that would send them that route versus their situation at home, which I guess technically could be connected. If you're looking for if you're looking for a family and you find it in your gang versus your home,
or the gang is in your family, unfortunately.
And so, yeah,
yes.
And so, back then I kind of thought about it, and I knew that I was thinking, if I don't do something here, this could not end up well, and it did. And unfortunately, there's a few. In fact, I went to several funerals for former students who got caught up in the wrong stuff, and you can kind of see that. But now I think that's exactly the purpose of the interventions. It's just trying to prevent that, and instead of them heading down that wrong path and maybe it's just they're holding something in, and they're not sharing it or expressing it, and that gets them to make bad decisions. This can help with that. And I think, so what I do to alleviate it is just to provide the best possible opportunity for kids to, my back door, I have a main entrance where the parents would come in through the, checking in and all that. But I have a back door to my office that is unlocked. Kids access that constantly. And when they feel that easy access to the leader of the school, or to a role model, or to have that ability to come and say, Mr. G, they go right to me. They sometimes skip the coaches, and I always say, well, did you talk to somebody out there?
Yeah.
But they want to come tell me because they know they'll get it resolved, or I'll help them. So the access and the ease of communication, I think, helps when you develop that to avoid this path, the school to prison path. The more connections, the more relationships you build, the better you understand, can help nudge and guide. We have other programs like AVID, who, when you talk about AVID, trying to get kids to think who would normally never go to college. Parents who knows what the parent life has been like, but, guiding them in that manner. So AVID connected with PBIS, connected with, a good connection with an adult. How often we'd say just make a connection with an adult.
For sure. That's a good way to alleviate it. It looks like they're saying by the definition that it's due to harsh school and municipal policy. See, I would argue that that's the opposite of what PBIS is doing. I don't think it is harsh. It's more positive. Well, that's why it's positive behavior intervention. I would think that would be something that's helping to alleviate this as well, don't you think?
And I do. And I think, too, when we talk about this pipeline, are we talking about, inner city Are we talking about suburban? Or what are we talking about? Rural? I mean, definitely when you get to the inner cities and some of the tougher schools, could you imagine teaching in, the Bronx, New York, or, Compton, California?
Absolutely.
A different mindset. But everything that you know and I know comes back to what helps kids go, not necessarily on a straight and narrow path, because sometimes we deviate to have life lessons, not extreme life lessons like prison, but sometimes we have to take an off ramp to get back on. And but there's different challenges for different schools. If you're teaching in, Beverly Hills, California, or Palo Alto in California up near Stanford versus some of the inner cities, which are a little bit tougher, kids have a little bit tougher go of it, then you have to do different strategies. I often wonder, and I think I don't know if we've touched on it, like, what kind of an impact could I make in one of those high need schools? And in those schools, if we're talking about, the Bronx, New York, or Compton, California, what is it like for those kids at the elementary level? You think typically high school, and that's when the trouble starts, but really it starts at the elementary. I wonder what kind of difference we could make at the elementary level in those high poverty, struggling schools.
That's where to make the difference.
Yeah. So what I'm doing to just finalize this particular question, I think what we all can do is just continue. I mean, it sounds so simplistic, but it's about developing relationships. It's about developing relationships. You mentioned at the start of this, two of my teachers who I had no idea what they were going to say. I don't go up and say, "Hey, am I doing a great job?"
Right.
Or "Isn't this wonderful?" So to hear that kind of compliment come from them to a bunch of other future administrators was fantastic. But the simple part of this is developing relationships with your teachers, with your classified folks, with the students and the parents. And I think that's where you can make the true difference and stop this and put a plug in this pipeline.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Before we go to this next one, I want to make sure we're getting everything, so I'm going to adjust your mic again.
Oh, my God. All right.
It's okay. Here, let's do this. Pull it back, because you're doing great. You're projecting. I don't need you to... You don't have to put it back close.
You don't want it that close.
Well, I don't... Just...
A little AV audio work going on right now. All right, so I'm going to just talk right to here, and if it's good that way,
that was good.
It's on you.
I'm picking you up. You're nailing it now. Okay, so
we might have to redo the first two segments.
No, stop. So this goes right with it, and keeping
another question
within
Here
the same
comes.
theme.
On
So
your
this,
pod.
Yep. So this is on bullying. What are you doing to combat bullying? Do you think it's able to be brought down, or should there be more counseling for students being bullied? I'm not entirely sure what they mean by being brought down. I would assume, can you fix it on your own without counselors coming in and talking to kids?
Can you reduce bullying
on your own type of thing? Yeah, go for it.
Well, we've gone through a few different programs in our district. There was this Olveus anti-bully program. There's a lot of programs out there. But I'm going to sound like a broken record, and I'm going to apologize. I think bullying, or that atmosphere, or the letting kids get away with it, starts with the leader and starts with the teachers. I mean, teachers hear it and see it. It could be. It's not even necessarily physical. It can just be a word or a look, or, "Oh, you're dumb," or "You're stupid," And so I think it just starts with the mentality of the entire school. I know one of the first things that I do, I go, some principals, and it doesn't matter if it's a start of a new school like I was at, or a new school year. But I would go, as you remember from being a 4th and 5th grade teacher for me, and I would always start with the highest grade at the school, which in our case was always 5th. And I'd go in individually to every classroom and do what I called the discipline chat.
Right.
And that was, I would talk about with the 4th or 5th grade students, suspendable offenses, expellable offenses, defiance, disruption, stealing and thieves and lying and all that kind of stuff, vandalism. And so I'd give this speech at the beginning of every year. I'd go into every classroom. Do you remember those?
Absolutely.
And so it was me and the 30 kids, teacher sitting back, listening. And so it was always nice, too, because the teacher could hear what I'm saying to then reinforce it later on. But the reason why I did that is because you can have a discipline assembly at the beginning of the year, bring in, in this case at Bethune, 90 kids. I could bring 3 classes, 90 kids, my whole 5th grade in to the NPR, sit them down, put up a little slideshow, and talk, right? And I'm talking to 90 kids. Probably, honestly, 60, 70% are really tuned in, if that's a good percentage. Others are kind of in and out,
checked
this
out.
and that,
yeah.
right? So one of the things, the way that I combat bullying is to make that initial impression on the kids. I went to Bethune this year. The majority, 99% of the kids, there was a few kids that knew me that transferred back that were overflowed to wherever. But the impact that I felt to eliminate this, or at least to slow it down, or to almost bring it to a halt, is to let the kids see me, see the look in my eye, the intensity in my voice when I said, I don't tolerate bullies at this school. Bullying, I would give different examples. The uncomfortable, it kind of goes along with harassment too. Not sexual harassment, but just harassment, just kind of thinking you're going to puff your chest out and you're going to, because somebody looks different or is different, that you could take advantage. And so those classroom visits that I did, and I did them this year at Bethune, I did them every year, and I actually do a follow-up one in January to kind of get through that, that season.
You have to remind them
towards the end of the year. But I would, Brian, just go in and just talk about all the different things, and bullying was one of my major topics, and just said, I don't like bullies. You're not going to be a bully at this school. And it's just a talk, a few role models, a few examples.
Mm-hmm.
And, it happens. Kids say stuff, but it's not the kind where you can have this group or this couple of kids marauding around thinking that they ran the school. And sadly, last year at my school, Bethune Elementary, there were some groups that did that. They could intimidate and pick on others, and nothing was really done. It all starts with the person at the top, and I know that. I know I'm the one that can go get a kid in my office and say, you know what, knock it off. This is what you're doing. This is how they feel, and you may think it's funny. And do you know what? Oftentimes bullies are just doing that. The bullies bully because they lack something. It's a way to cover up maybe their academic deficiencies.
Insecurities.
It's a way to kind of try to show off oftentimes. And you know what? I haven't had, perfect success. But I'll tell you, very few kids come to me and saying somebody's picking on me. When they do, and that's the other thing, is dealing with it right then and there, right away. Don't let it linger. Don't wait 2 weeks, because don't we know some of the tragedies that have happened around the country when, especially at the high school, middle school, high school level, when students have been bullied and they've taken it and they've taken it and they've taken it, and finally they react in a very serious, sometimes very violent way. And so the important thing is, and I tell the students, don't let it fester. Tell them to stop, or I'll tell Mr. G. And it sounds so crazy, like, oh, sure. But it works. It works when people are aware. Some kids know truly when they're being a bully. Others are kind of thinking, oh, I can say something funny and be a wisecracker, but they don't think it's that the victim wouldn't think it's bullying, when in fact it is. And you just have to let people know, I don't like it and I want you to stop. And if you don't stop, I'm going to let somebody know. And in this case, it's me. So I do a lot to prevent, just by front loading, so to speak, and getting them to kind of understand that this is a bully-free school. And you can talk about that all you want.
Posters and everything.
But But yeah, posters don't. It's the people involved, and it also takes the teachers too to intervene. And other kids. How often have you done some things where kids stand around and watch kids make fun of somebody else?
Well, I think that's a clarification for bullying that kids don't understand is just being there. You're also being the bully. If you walk up to a student and you're being mean to that student, just by me being there gives the presence that now it's not just that one person that's talking.
Yeah.
Now it's like, oh shoot, now I have two people.
Yeah.
When I might not have been saying, I'm just Tom's friend. I'm hanging out with him, but.
Right.
Type of thing.
Exactly.
I don't think kids at this age
you
understand.
And you ask, why didn't you stand up? Why didn't you say something?
Yeah.
And that whole fear, that whole retaliation, that whole, I don't want to be the next person being picked on or bullied, so I'll join in with the bully.
Yeah, it's easier to be friends with the bully than to stand up to the bully.
To stand up for what's right.
Yeah.
So I don't think there should be, I don't necessarily think there's counseling. I think it's just setting the stage of zero tolerance and really sticking to it and getting the kids to believe. I mean, how often have you heard, snitches get stitches,
right?
All that kind of nonsense, and that irritates me more than anything. You're a snitch, you're a rat. Those words and those phrases bother me more than anything. And I tell the kids when I go into those discipline chats, and I get all animated about that. I call it. You know what I call it? I call it being a responsible student. Taking care of. You have the right to come to school and be safe, not be picked on or name called or pushed around physically or shoulder bumped as you're walking by. And I tell students it's not a snitch, it's not a rat, it's being responsible, and you have the right to be responsible.
Yeah, agree. Well said.
How's that?
Well said. Well said. I wanted to lighten it up after I knew.
Yeah, too serious.
Well, no, not just too serious, but I'm just trying to balance the things. I knew that behavior management was, you're great at that. So I wanted to put those up. So, just for an interesting one that came through. This is topic would be an awkward conversation. They asked, what is the most awkward conversation with a teacher you had to initiate? So I guess this wouldn't be a teacher comes to you and it's an awkward. Yeah. It's like, no, you have to initiate it because I don't know, body odor or.
Okay, you gave me a little hint because I was going to go kind of in the direction of some awkward or hard or honest conversations.
Well, it could be anything. It could be, maybe I was trying to think of these, like, maybe it's a teacher who isn't doing it intentionally, but is maybe a little too handsy with a student or, standing standing by the bathroom or anything.
Oh, gosh. No, I haven't had to deal with that. But a couple of things, and I'm going to try to make sure I remember what I really wanted to talk about. But when I first saw this, and before you mentioned, some awkward or difficult conversations are ones that you have to have when, like, if a parent complains, such and such, and so you have to, and I think I don't know if I mentioned last time on the show, Brian, the Lazy Teacher podcast.
That's a little plug. Thanks, Tom.
I don't know if I mentioned last time, like having that difficult or conversation. Oftentimes, when parents come or have an issue, as an administrator, you make a judgment call. Is this something that I need to address with the teacher, or is it it's kind of a odd thing, not weird odd, but just kind of it's just okay, I can, if it happens again, maybe I'll address it. But so those are sometimes tough to have depending on what the complaint was or whatever.
Okay.
Some very difficult sometimes conversations are when you have to let a teacher go or they've done something or you've had to address a matter like that. Those
are hard. Let's get into
awkward.
An awkward.
Okay.
Awkward because it's always it has to be addressed.
Awkward is something like you see a teacher who's maybe showing a little too much of cleavage. Is that what you wanted me to say?
Yes.
My God.
Or anything.
Why didn't you just say? Why don't you just make it about the way they're dressed? maybe shorts. I try to tell my staff to dress professionally. If we are professionals, we should dress professionally. Typically, Wednesdays and Fridays are college spirit days, and on Wednesdays, and school spirit on Fridays. So jeans are totally cool. Otherwise, I like people to dress, not a tie for guys, but just nice casual clothing. Sometimes the female teachers in their, you got to be careful with the arm looseness of the blouse and things like that. So I've had to have a few conversations over my years as administrator, tell a teacher, and it's very delicate. I mean, and if I had an assistant principal at the time, which in the two that I'm remembering, I did not. So it's like, okay, hey, you know what? Just be a little more cognizant.
Especially if it's a female.
Well, yeah, that's
AP,
what I'm talking about.
yeah.
A guy, I could tell, hey, dude, no shorts.
Yeah.
Come on. We don't wear shorts here unless you're a PE teacher. And we don't have PE teachers at elementary solely. So wear long pants, wear a nice shirt. That female teacher is a whole different cup of tea.
That's a tricky one. I could see how that could come across for awkward for you because it's almost like, do they think I'm looking? I'm not necessarily looking.
Right.
I'm noticing because I'm the admin. I have to see this.
Do you know where it comes most of the time? From another teacher.
Oh.
It's
complaining to you? Like
just saying,
Mr. G, notice.
Yeah, just kind of, and it's not like to tattletale. It's just they know it's a girl thing. They come tell the male principal and just having that, hey, just be careful. And that's how I really say it. I don't say you're showing too much. I just say be smart with how you're dressing and how students, and it doesn't matter if it's a first grader or a fifth grader.
Yeah.
Everybody has eyes.
Yeah. What perception are you trying to create?
Yeah. Exactly. So it's been, those really awkward ones have been like, okay, just kind of dress a little more conservatively, try to do it without making them, blush and get all that way. It's delicate though, and it is awkward.
That was a good one.
You led me into that.
Well, I wanted it to be a fun one, so
Get away from all these serious questions.
This one's a good one. I don't know. I'm gonna assume this one. They're possibly a new teacher. It's about alternative certification. So how do you feel about teachers who take the route of alternative certification? So maybe they have their teaching certification and they go to one of the online universities to get a master's, or they're doing that for their teaching certification. Do you feel that they perform on par with other teachers? And is it a consideration when you hire someone? That's a couple questions in there.
That's fair. I like that. The last one. Does it make a difference in hiring?
Correct.
And when we screen applications, if I have an opening, get down to the district office. Here's the app. They do the main screening to make sure that they've met all the requirements, and then it comes down to us as the panel to look through and kind of be prepared as the candidate comes in for the questions. Honestly, I don't think now, because they're so much more popular. That you have the Grand Canyon, you have Phoenix University, you have all these online things.
Exactly.
And I understand why people do those. Oftentimes it's convenience. Maybe working during the day, can't get to school. It's a lot of convenience, which is, I don't have anything wrong with it. I don't know enough details about some of those particular alternative certification programs, what quality of instructors they're getting as they sit at home listening, and if they're engaging in discussions, cohort groups with. I don't know enough about the people do it, but I think it would come down to the instructor, their experience in providing that quality syllabus for that particular content, that particular semester. But when I look back and I flash back just recently when I was on a panel, did I look at what university they went to? Not really.
Okay.
What we look at is their experience, work experience related to the particular job. And then it all comes out in the questions, because people do differently at school as well, I mean, some are straight A, and can cite theory left and right, but they can't relate to kids.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I don't necessarily look at it as being good or bad. I just don't know enough. I haven't done enough work. I didn't do it, so I don't know. I can't say, yeah, I went through it and it's fantastic.
Yeah.
You know?
I kind of took from this, I suppose if a teacher was like myself, I don't have my master's. If I was going to get my master's, I definitely would go that alternative route. I don't have a whole lot of time.
Yeah.
As a good teacher, I know how to get the best out of it. I'm sure teachers that get their teaching certification through that means, they probably come out great. My concern would be, like you said, with a cohort, like how much experience did you have with, good instructors going to say, hey, okay, here guys, this is, think, pair, share, turn with your partner, you're gonna, like demonstrating it as you're going through that. If you're learning online, do you have that opportunity to experience that, coming in as a new teacher? I don't know. There's a lot of stuff I think you would miss out on, but
yeah, I don't think it'd be the exact same experience as sitting in a classroom with a group of other adults, eye to eye with the professor. And typically, and oftentimes in these cases, it's former administrators, former teachers, former superintendents that are running these classes. That's who they hire, of course. You can't replace experience, right?
Right.
You can't. So if you get some guy who is a former, superintendent, they're teaching the class, and maybe the online classes have that good engagement opportunity. Maybe they do those group, conference sessions or however they do it. But I think you'd probably get more out of in class, eye to eye. But we know this day and age, it's work, make some money, survive. Some cases just pay the money. I mean, it's out there. But I don't, as a school administrator, I don't look at that. It all comes to me is when I meet you, do I get the right feel? Do I think that you can help my school, and where can you help my school? That's how I do it, and it's through the interview. In fact, speaking of the interview questions, I just, Mickey Gates, right?
Of course.
She was a teacher at LaSalle. Now she's the union president.
Yes.
She's the union president of VVTA, the Valverde Teachers Association. She's interested in moving into administration. I'm her mentor. We talked about that a little earlier. And one of the things that we did 2 Fridays ago, she came over, spent the day, she shadowed with me, spent the evening with me at the father-daughter dance, huge success, monster turnout, first time ever at Bethune. So,
of course,
yeah, the DJ was pretty good too.
that's Mr. G, DJ Gigi,
Mr. G. But Mickey and I sat down before we had all the PTO help and all that, got the dance setting up and all that. And we had some time together, and she wanted to go over interview questions with me. As a prospective administrator and as a long-time administrator, what kinds of questions can you ask, or are the best questions to draw out the best so you can see if that person makes that fit or not? Or
sure.
And so oddly enough, when it comes down to that, that's how I kind of view it. Just what are they saying? What vibe? Do we get it perfect all the time? No. Just some prospective or potential teachers who do great in interviews, collapse under the pressure of the job because it is not easy, especially for a first-year teacher who comes in and just smacks. In spite of all the training, it still smacks you in the face when you have your own 30 kids. You're planning, you're preparing, you got parents counting on you, you've got your colleagues counting on you, got your administration holding you accountable. It's not easy. So the questions and to be able to draw through and try to sift through that is challenging. And so Mickey and I, when we were doing it, she was. We just went through and listed for her particular class that she was taking, 8 to 10 questions that we felt that we could really draw some good information out of candidates. So
there you go.
That's how I do it, and I think most administrators go by feel, by sense of, look at them in the eye. And one other thing that's really important when I hire, and I do my best to kind of make sure, is I always ask the question, would I want my child in that person's class?
Yeah.
My own flesh and blood. And if the answer is, I'm not quite sure, or, then it's probably no.
Yeah. I think it's a lot like anything you'd acquire, it doesn't matter so much how it looks on paper. All right.
Because we know a lot of people can fluff up applications and resumes, and
Exactly.
it doesn't mean anything.
This next one you kind of hit on already, but you might want to elaborate a little bit.
What's that?
This one's on zero tolerance. Where do you stand? I guess it should be on. Where do you stand on zero tolerance policies in your school system? That's a tricky one because I'm thinking, where would you have zero tolerance? I can think of, well, obviously firearms type of thing would be a zero tolerance, but is there anything else that you have at your school or that you feel the school system has on zero tolerance?
I think I can. The zero tolerance is the only thing that I can tie into this. And you mentioned one of them is firearms. Is we have what we call in our district the Big Five. The Big Five are things that students can be recommended for expulsion. Doesn't necessarily mean that they will be, but as we all know, there's a lot of factors that go into that as well. But if you do, and now I'm going to have to be put on the spot here to try to remember the Big Five, but that's the zero. The Big Five are primarily the zero tolerance. Bringing weapons to school, brandishing a knife. Another Big Five is committing sexual assault, selling drug-related stuff.
Okay.
And then the fifth one is, I think, bringing explosives to school. I think I might be right on that, actually. Pretty close. And so those five are the Big Five, as we call them. And I was talking earlier about the discipline chats. I talk about the Big Five. I don't do it in grades. I only do it in grades 4 or 5 because, the education code says, especially like for sexual harassment and things, I talk about the Big Five in the upper grades. Primary grades, I'm not sure cognitively. I mean, they understand don't bring a gun to school or don't bring. But it really gets hit hard in the 4th and 5th grade, the upper grade levels. But those 5, I mean, that's what our school district, you and us and that's really where the zero tolerance comes in, is those Big Fives.
Yeah.
Now, are there exceptions to some of those, and does every kid get kicked out? I don't know those. I don't know those facts, but I know that that's zero tolerance at my school, and I would make the recommendation, and then it's up to that board to determine what happens with that student.
I think it's important to have a zero tolerance, especially for those Big Five.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, you just think about it. And I talk in that discipline talk, I talk about, and that comes back to all this ties into, think about bullying. You bring a little pocket knife to school because so-and-so has been bothering you. So you think, you know what, I'm going to bring a little knife just in case.
Yeah.
You dare pull that out because they're calling you names, and you say, you know what, you call me a name again, brandishing a weapon, you're done, and you're the victim.
Yeah.
That's
where I think zero tolerance could get tricky because, like you said, in that situation, the victim is, gosh, let's not even say they pull it out and say, if you do that again, I'm going to cut you. Mm-hmm. It's, stop. And they're pulling the knife out like, that's what they feel is that's their only way to protect themselves.
Right.
And that's a tricky thing.
And then it turns into being a threat to somebody else.
All of a sudden it's a threat, and zero tolerance, you brandished a weapon, this poor kid that's been getting bullied. I'm not saying, we're just painting a picture here, but that's where I think zero tolerance could be wiggly.
But also, even before that comes back to, again, everything that I've rambled on about, is that it shouldn't get to that point where the kid has to bring a knife to school. That's where the positive behavior interventions come in. That's where that relationship comes in. Like, I'm going to go tell because I don't like how I feel, and that communication can prevent some of these tragedies. And that's what's important about the zero tolerance. Because think about this. What if you're the parent of that kid who's been bullied? They on their own bring a little pocket knife that they have had for camping to school. Parent doesn't know that they've brought it. And then they pull this out. And then all of a sudden now you're saying, okay, I'm going to suspend you, possible expulsion. And they've been a victim all along. But that's where I also, in my back to school address on video in front of all the parents that go there, I talk about that. I say, if your child's coming home, if you see that they're acting any different, or they're saying, so-and-so is picking on me, let me know before it gets to that point of a weapon or worse.
Right. Yeah. All right. This one came a little bit late, but it'll work because we were just talking about Mickey. Mm-hmm. This topic is on unions. And if you don't mind, I'd like to give my teacher perspective first.
Sure.
It says, do you feel that unions have a positive or negative impact on your staff? So I can't answer to the staff. Admittedly, I do have a bias towards the union. I kind of feel like as a teacher, I see the union banner kind of, so to speak, get waved a lot inappropriately when I think, oh, you can't do that because, the unions, it's like, Jesus, we're just asking, can we have a school dance, and all of a sudden the unions, popping their head up because it's like, no, that's after hours and it needs to go to a majority vote of this. I think that's a problem. Okay. That said, now what if a situation came up in class where, a child goes home and says, I did this. Oh, well, what did your teacher do? Oh, he said it was okay and gave me a hug. Wait, your teacher did what? Mm-hmm. And then now I have a sexual harassment suit where it's like this kid was crying and, anyways type of thing. So mm-hmm. I see a positive and a negative to it. I feel like I see that the negative side more often with the union, and especially if you have, depends on the union rep too. I think this is a very, very hard question for you to answer. So yeah. So how do you feel? Do you feel that unions have a positive or negative impact on your staff? Ready, go.
Well, I think you raised a couple of good scenarios there. I've never had I understand there are unions. We have the classified union for our classified staff. We have the certificated union, our teachers union. Us administrators, by the way, at least in California, we don't have a union. We are, in fact, a week from yesterday, coming up next Friday. Let's put it that way, March 15th. That's when us administrators are notified either, yes, you're going to be around next year, or thank you very much, good luck. March 15th. No union for us. I accept the fact that there's a teacher union, classified union. I accept the fact that there's contracts. I am on the negotiating team for our district that negotiates with the classified union. I've been on that for several years. I have no problems with the unions in general. Where the problem lies is the nitpicky stuff, and that's what your first example was. No administrator is going to, blatantly, at least I think if they have any sense or they want to keep their job, is going to violate the contract or violate a union member's rights. Just don't do that. But you also have a school to run. And just like you say, I think in our contract, teachers are required to do 4 night duties. Typically back to school night's one of them. Maybe you have a reading night or a family night or whatever. And then sometimes you might have to have a 5th one. Now, what happens in that case? And most teachers will just do it.
Of course.
We'll just do it. But there are some sites who have site reps that say, oh, no. We've already had our 4. You shouldn't be doing that. He's violating the contract or she's violating the contract. So it really, truly depends on the mentality of the school. A few years back at LaSalle, I had and I've had a lot of union over my career. I've had union presidents. I've had, obviously we have site reps and such, and I've had a decent relationship with most. I mean, I feel like I'm not threatened by the union because I know what I'm doing is I'm not doing something so extravagant that it's violating a member's rights. So I've never had a problem, and even if there is a problem, most of the time it can be resolved just by coming and say, hey, were you aware? And there are some cases like at LaSalle a few years back where we were trying to figure out the best way to have coverage at dismissal time. I kind of said, this is what I think should happen. The teachers got together, and when you listen to the teachers, and many times it comes out as a better end product, a better result, and we did that. So there's lots of, if the communication is taking place and you have that relationship, you can do it without saying, he told me I have to be on this duty and that kind of nonsense, right? A few years back, what I thought was really common sense, I had, when I first got to LaSalle, I believe it was like 9 years ago, my first year, wanted staff members to wear the vest, the green vest, the high visible vest for yard duty. okay, in my head, I'm thinking, okay, you've got 6 teachers on duty. Parents, we all know, peer in through the gates and through the fences. And, okay, who's on duty? Who isn't? Where's the adult? Because some kids are bigger. Put a vest on. That way the administration knows who's on duty. And, yes, you could tell who isn't there. Yeah, that's part of it. But if it's your job and it's your day, it's your turn, get out there.
A vest isn't going to tell you if they're there or not. Yes, they might stand out, but regardless, if you're going to check, you're going to check.
Yeah, it's a safety issue. So one of the first staff meetings I remember, I said, okay, for duty, both during recess duty before school and after school, wear your vests if you're on duty, so that way we can identify. We can say to a kid can go, okay, you go to that person, they've got the vest on, they're on duty, they'll stand there with you until parent arrives, etc. Well, back then, a particular teacher felt that I was trying to make a dress code with that, and filed a grievance, went through the whole process, and ended up going actually to an arbitrator who actually listened to the case, because the district was not going to waiver on the fact that this is a safety issue. Nothing. We're not trying to make you. I'm not trying to tell you to wear a bow tie and fancy colored argyle socks.
Right.
It's a vest for visibility for safety.
Yeah.
Nothing more. It did go through all the way to the end. We won, of course. The arbitrator could not see that this was in any way impacting anyone's dress. And so those kinds of things. Sometimes you have to go through those things with the union. And it works out for the best, because oftentimes it does.
I don't know that it happened in that experience, but from what I've seen, and this is what frustrates me, is I think if a teacher was to say that and then brought it to the attention of the rep, brought it through the correct channels, and then the rep came to you, hey, here's what I'm hearing type of thing. Mm-hmm. That's correct. I mean, I think that's the right way to do it.
Yeah.
In my experience, I notice it seems to be the reps that cause the issue. It's like they feel they need to stand up, be the voice of everyone without anyone even saying anything. And that's where that frustrates me. It's like, if you're supposed to be my voice, then come to me and ask me, and let's get a majority vote or whatever the rule is. Don't just go up and stand up for every little thing that you feel is wrong just because you feel that way. You're not voted my rep just so you can be angry about everything.
That's the most important point about school site union representatives.
Yeah.
Is this your agenda?
Exactly.
Or is it somebody else's agenda?
That's what I meant. Yes.
And if it's the group, fine. Bring it to the there's so many times where things have been brought to me that and I am not one to profess that I know the union both contracts page by page, line by line, but I know the majority of the topics that we tend to have to deal with. And if a site rep is just nitpicking line by line and is only doing it with their motivation in mind, or their gain, or their I'm going to show you, without the voice of the 40 teachers or 30 teachers, that's unfair and wrong. And that's where I can see from a teacher perspective how frustrating. I'm sitting in a meeting and a site rep or somebody else is just throwing all this stuff out, and wait a minute, never got my opinion.
Exactly.
Never heard my voice. That's wrong. But I just think that I'm okay with the unions. Luckily, knock on wood, that at my new school, Bethune, we are focused on teaching and learning. I do everything I can to stay within the parameters. I don't bend anything. I just move forward. And if an issue comes up, it's all about that relationship, right? Too. Come back to that R word. If you feel like, hey, I can go talk to Mr. G, hey, and sometimes we do things and that we're not even cognizant of it. And that's it happens, right? Oh, I didn't know that this was this, or
of course.
That was that. So bring it to my attention, I'll remedy it.
Yeah.
But not when people have their own agendas. That's not cool. And sometimes we all have heard the phrase, negativity breeds negativity, right? And if you're at a staff that just constantly has union mentality and the negative union mentality, that could be so harmful to kids and the culture of the school, and it's time to get out.
It's tricky. I've been to, and I'm not saying this about all union meetings.
No.
And Mickey, she ran a couple meetings that I would go to, and it never really felt like that with Mickey. But sometimes it feels like an echo chamber where it's like you're speaking to the same people that feel the same way, who feed the same thing, and you're just building and building, and you're just doing the same thing over and over, and it's the same people venting and complaining about the exact same thing. And so the teacher that wants to come in, like myself, that I don't want to hear that. I don't want to hear all this negative stuff, and it just becomes that. And yeah, like you said, it just
I remember you a couple of times, Brian, and I don't know for sure because I never dug that deep. Because if there was going to be a meeting, have the meeting, have to it. But I remember a few times that you said, I go, hey, what's going on? You go, oh, they're having a union meeting, but I'm not going.
Yep.
You refuse to go because in some cases, in those situations where you get that 2, 3, 4, 5, it's usually a very small cluster that it's just drama. It's like like that, let it go. Quit trying to get reinforced because you can raise your voice or you can say something and you have 2 or 3 people agree and the rest are going, that didn't impact me. I don't remember that. I don't remember that happening. That kind of thing.
Yeah.
So the deal is the majority. If it's the majority is saying like, what's going on here, and who's mostly the loudest, the negative ones, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I mean, we have so many good teachers who just want to do their job. They want to be treated fairly. They want to have their rights protected. No problem. I completely agree with that. I wish I could have my rights protected. I don't. So that's why I have to be very careful. And I've always been cognizant of that I don't have, and we know it has happened multiple times that if you as an administrator are violating or just ignoring or just creating an environment that's just really negative because of the relationship you have with the site reps and or the union, they can run you out. They can put enough pressure to the higher ups that said this person is ineffective and here are the reasons why.
Yeah.
Now, the district doesn't listen to everything and just say, oh yeah, okay, I believe you. I mean, obviously they do their homework and they hear things as well, but that's the worst kind of thing is when you have the staff turning completely either on an administrator or the administrative team and not doing what they're, and then who sits there in the classroom when the teachers are emailing like, yeah, did you hear what they said? They did, all that just draws away from the purpose of being an educator.
Exactly. All right, we beat
What's
that one.
next?
I got to get this one's a good one. I like this. I put this one at the end because
This is the last one?
This is the last one. Yeah,
I survived.
You're doing amazing. Okay, so this one, let me throw that one out. Throw it at you, and then you could take a look at it.
Here it comes.
Okay, so this one, the topic is helicopter versus free range type of parenting. So helicopter parenting would be a parent that just like a helicopter hovers around their child to protect them from everything, make sure everything is right, make sure everything's, they're not getting into harm, they're getting treated fairly, everything, they're just, constantly want to be involved. Whereas free range is, they're going to grow, they're going to be what they're going to be. So they're kind of like a hands-off parenting, and it'd be like that'd be the dynamic opposite of a helicopter parent. So the question would be, what are your thoughts, and do you on helicopter parenting versus free range, and do you see any issues with children having lives where there is too much control, scheduling, and participation trophies? So they kind of justified it in saying, they said, I grew up in a family of farming. It was common to see 13-year-old kids operating farm equipment, and we even had a hunting club where juniors and seniors would bring hunting guns to school, keep them locked up, and then go hunt with the football coach.
Wow.
I know. I hear stories about police.
That's rural.
That is. I hear stories about police being called when a kid is playing in the front yard and being supervised, or even walking a block or two to a park. I feel like the ability to develop independence and real-world problem-solving skills is severely hampered. What are your thoughts, Mr. G? There you go.
Good question.
It's a good one to end with. I like this one.
Yeah, I have a feeling about this, and I've being new to Bethune this year, at LaSalle, knew quite a bit of the community, obviously, long time. So coming in new, I don't know who's who. I don't, I'm getting a feel. And now here we are in March, and I have a pretty good barometer of what's going on. There are definitely helicopter parents, primarily at the very early ages. I mean, in my experience, it's showing that they're more and more, K1, 2 kind of thing, maybe 3. Kind of letting go. It also depends on how many kids they've had.
Of course.
Think about it.
The first
A first child. I mean, that's why the first days of kindergarten and cutting that umbilical cord to release them to us and trust us.
Yeah.
And that was always a big deal too. I think helicopter parents can get in the way at times.
Agree.
I really do. I think, I can, and actually, now that I think about it, I'm thinking of a specific student that I've heard about. I'm not going to give any details because I'm not going to, but parent helicoptering by continually contacting the teacher, finding out what work is needed, what work is done, what can they do to make up stuff. I mean, it's that doing all the legwork and all the work for the kid. Mm-hmm. And this is actually a little older student. That can be detrimental because all we're simply doing is just taking the power and the responsibility away from the kid, and the parent's going to eventually hit a wall. And the kid's going to reject it. The society is going to reject it. Like, let go here. This is time for growth.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't necessarily believe in free range.
I don't either.
And I'm not sure what that truly means. I mean, in this instance, what you read, the farm and the taking the guns and going hunting with the teacher. I mean, that's different age, different situation. Clearly.
Well, I do see the point that I think it was a male, if I remember. I do see the point that he's talking about in that my kids did have the police called on them when they were walking. There's a slope up the hill, and my boys wanted, like, hey, Dad, can we go play on the slope? Yeah, make some smart choices up there. And they did. Mm-hmm. They were just exploring, being boys, carrying sticks and hitting rocks and stuff. And the police were called. Police showed up at my door. As you know, your boys are up on the hill. Actually, they were up on the hill. They're back now, and then called them out there and please talk to them. And
what was the problem?
The problem was that neighbors called and
because there's 2 kids playing by themselves.
Because there's 2 kids playing by themselves up on a hill. Ridiculous. So I don't consider myself a free range parent, but I also think that's where. That's where you learn to be a boy, and you're experiencing life, and you get a little bit of freedom, and I don't want them inside playing Fortnite or doing whatever. Like I want them outside experiencing, but yet the police are called because of it.
I'm only gonna try to defend that person who called the police for half a second, and that is this day and age, 2 children, doesn't matter the age. Doesn't matter if we're in the middle of Nebraska or if we're in downtown LA or in Hemet, California or whatever. There is that inherent risk of leaving children alone, out playing, because we know there's some really bad people out there. So if the intent of the person calling was to say, hey, there's 2 kids playing, I don't want anything bad to happen. I can give some free range leeway on that one.
For sure, yeah.
But if just somebody's saying like, these kids are playing, they're throwing dirt and making noise, and I'm going to be a grouchy old neighbor or a grouchy old person, then I have problems with that. But think about when we were growing up. We played all the time, right? Mm-hmm. Outside, everywhere.
Be back when the street lights come on.
Huh?
You have to be home when the street lights come on.
Exactly. Hear the dinner bell. So the free range helicopter issue. I think at the primary grades, it's kind of expected in a very small percentage. Yeah. And also, it comes back to how do the parents feel about leaving their kid first of all, let's talk the bigger picture, the school, then the leader who's in charge of that school. Is my kid totally safe at that school? Can I leave them there and just go free range myself?
Yeah.
And then the teachers and the supervision. So sometimes parents do that just because they're hovering because that's their style. Others do it as a safety precaution.
Mm-hmm.
Think about how many people, I mentioned earlier, looking at the fence line as the kids are all outside. They're watching until making sure that kid gets in line, the teacher's there, and they're walking to class. And some even I've seen move around to the other side where the classroom is to get to make sure they've made it in there or not.
Yeah, there's a meme that we used to pass around when I was in kindergarten. It was one picture where like 6 parents on tiptoes looking through a window, and it says kindergarten parents on the first day of school. And then the other picture is cars peeling out of the parking lot, and it says 5th grade parents on the first day of school.
Exactly. So the expectation is clear that typically the primary grades are a little more cautious depending on the number of children they have. Some after their 3rd kid. Yeah. Take sayonara. I've got work. Thank God now I have full 4 or 5 hours free. But I don't think it's harmful. Think about this though. There are some parents who, when talking about scheduling, I'm not into participation trophies either.
No, I agree.
You know what?
Nope.
I tell this all the time. I have 2 biological daughters, Danielle and Katie. Brilliant, beautiful, young women now. Like if we have a chess club at school or checkers, and I always tell kids when I play in tetherball, wall ball, whatever it is, when I'm competing, I don't let people beat me just because. The self-esteem thing. And my 2 daughters, this is going to probably sound mean, but my 2 daughters, I love to play chess, and I love that thinking game. And my daughters, as they were growing up, they would want to either play checkers, chess, or backgammon, not for money. And I'd never let them win. And my wife at the time would say, why don't you let them win once in a while? Why don't you let them win? I mean, they didn't go off bawling and crying like, oh, Daddy beat me again. No, because I'm teaching them because eventually they'll learn and they'll get better. And it wasn't before long where I would play and then, that
was a good move.
I got to start to think now. They pulled that quick one on me.
Yeah.
And then eventually it would be because they'd beat me, I'd beat them. It was a growth process. So you earn it, you get it. Participating, I've never been a fan of that. Now, there's different things. For example, just recently we had a science fair at our school. Okay, it's nice to recognize the kids and their effort. We picked 2 or 3 to go on to the district level, and others, didn't win. They made the effort. They did the experiments. They made their hypotheses. They did their engineering activity, robotics, whatever it was. So yeah, we gave out certificates. Thank you for participating in this year's science fair.
Right.
To me, that's a little different cup of tea than giving, the last place baseball team everybody a trophy because they were on the team.
Yeah.
I'm not into that at all.
I'm not into that either. I think free range could also be like, maybe not like letting your kid just play outside type of thing, but I'm just thinking the polar opposite of a helicopter parent. If you're going to call them free range, that would be the parent that has no activity in their kids' education. They do nothing. Yeah. Like as a 2nd grade teacher, sometimes I'll talk with kids, work on high frequency words, simple things. And I'm like, do your parents ever read with you? Do your parents ever look at this math page that we're working on? No. So I think that might be free range too. And I think I'd rather have a helicopter parent than a free range if that's what we're
right.
calling them.
Because the free range parents are the ones, sometimes they can help it. Maybe it's work. Maybe they have the swing shift or the night shift, and they're not. So there's those variables that you have to consider. But if it's just a straight, like I'm kind of a hands off. My kid comes home. I'm taking care of the house, so to speak, but I'm not really engaging. And sometimes parents think that they can't engage either through because of language issues, or maybe helping an 8th grader with math is kind of challenging, so they really can't help. But I would definitely rather have one more that's involved, to smaller percentages than none at all. I think we all agree with that.
Yeah, I completely agree. I don't care what the ability level is either. I mean, my kids come home and sometimes I have no idea what their math is. I'm really good at math. But my oldest son, he's some high level math. Yeah. I might not be able to understand it, but I could still say to him, so do you have homework? Oh, you do? Okay, cool. Let's get started on it and then come over. What are you doing? I'm doing this, that, and the other. You don't understand it, do you? I have no idea.
Just leave me alone, Dad.
Yeah.
Get out of my way.
I don't understand it, but I want to make sure you're doing it. Hey, can you tell me about it? Like, let me learn it too. And a lot of times you just get frustrated. I can get this done so much faster if you're just not hovering over me. So
Do you know what? One thing, I can't recall if I told this story or not, but it ties into that is, the expectation. Your kids know that they can come home to your beautiful home, have a quiet place, lights, all that to work. That's not the case for everyone, and so in our mind. And when I was growing up, I thought everybody had that. I thought everybody had a little desk and a little pencil sharpener, the kind that you have to leave all the shavings everywhere. But that is truly, definitely not the case. And so and so the expectation is like, everybody had what I had. I'll never forget my first year teaching. It was a 6th grade class, and I just couldn't get this child to do any work. And I modified the learning, shortened the lessons. Instead of doing 20 math problems, they did 10. Spelling words I cut down, all that. And still didn't get anything back in return. So I did what I thought I needed to do. I went and paid a home visit. I saw his home, and I knew instantly.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, holy, how could I have been so way off? Here I thought he had what I had. I thought every kid had at least a desk and a pencil sharpener and a light to work at. He had nothing. Yeah. He had one room that 8 people were piled into. Yeah. And so it really changed the way I thought about a lot of things. And I wish I would have done it about a month earlier, but some just don't have it, and they'd like it, and they'd like that support, but they have the free range because of sometimes it's just survival.
That's the product of their environment. Yeah. Unfortunately, there's just in our district alone, we have schools that are fortunate enough to be right in beautiful track houses, and then there's an area on the other side of the freeway. There, kids literally live in floorless trailers.
Yeah, and if we mentioned data a long time ago when we were referring to PBIS, but part of the PBIS data is foster youth, how many foster youth our school district has and our schools have, and homeless. And that number is staggering, the homeless number. That kids who are homeless, living in cars, living in a motel from time until they kind of just one step ahead of everything. So those numbers are huge. And so for them, it's not about a pencil and a light and a desk. It's about my next meal, staying warm, and having semi-clean clothes. So a lot of variables involved. And that's the challenge that we have, right?
Yeah.
We deal with foster youth, homeless. We deal with kids who have the helicopters. We have that whole spectrum. And that's what we get. When you have 30 kids in your class, that's your team. That's your team. Now, what are you going to do, Coach?
Exactly. That was a good answer. You're good at this.
We'll see what they say.
Have you done this before?
That guy didn't know what he was talking about. So, I don't know. This is all my personal take after 30 years and dealing with all kinds of parents, all kinds of teachers, few awkward moments. But it's all in the end, it's attitude too. I really think that your attitude as a teacher, as it relates to as we want to tie in some of these things, the unions or how we help kids peel away some of the layers to get to the root of the problem. It's just all about our attitude. And if we have that attitude, like, I am here to help kids and I'm going to do whatever it takes, then that's what will happen. And that's what I do. That's how I run my school. That's been my mantra forever. What can I do? And the other big piece of that is surrounding yourself with really good people that have the same kind of push. If you don't, and you have the opposing push, then it becomes...
You're fighting a battle.
Yeah,
and
it's hard.
It shouldn't be a battle when you're working for kids.
And that's why tying into the interviewing and the hiring piece, it's trying to get the right people.
Right.
Obviously, we can't interview everybody. When I went to Bethune, I have 23 teachers there waiting for me. So we gotta work that whole situation.
Beautiful.
What do you think, man?
We did an hour and a half.
That wasn't an hour and a half.
Flew by.
Jeez. Oh, yeah. Almost an hour and a half.
Yeah. I want to do this again. This was good. This was great.
Do this again. They're going to go, okay, Pulowski, come up with some different topics. That old bald fat guy is kind of running his course.
You're so hard on yourself. You're so hard on yourself. So.
Wow. I look at myself. But anyways, I'm really happy for the success of your show. I'm happy to be on it again. I'm lucky. I feel honored that you want to have me. I know that we're very good friends, and the hour and a half, the time goes by quick. And if anybody out there, if administrators, teachers, prospective administrators, I have about 5 to 7 more years to go. So I don't know how long your show is going to go, but if we do twice a year. And maybe one more time, not to try to get on here because it is Saturday.
It'd be good. It'd be I could think of another principal that I think it would be very interesting to have in.
Well, maybe that kind of thing, or also just kind of. And I know that we didn't do the first show. It was in 13 shows ago, but it is one full year after many years at one school. Maybe getting back together and talking about how did the year go and
that's a great idea.
What kind of things happened from then until now, and are you happy, and how is the progress of your school? So maybe kind of like for those going into, maybe because now is the time for folks to start getting hired, and maybe a teacher out there in the country is now going to be the first time principal next year at a new site. Maybe that might help. I don't know. Maybe it won't.
It's a great idea.
I don't know.
I love it. You're pitching ideas here.
I'm really excited because next Thursday, Corby and I, one of the principals,
yes,
I think you might be referring to.
That's who I was referring to.
We do TV broadcasting. Our school district has Teen Vision. It's run through our community school, and they have a very extensive. And I don't know if we talked about this last time, but. Video production group, and Corby and I we do baseball. We are the baseball announcers, and we cover the high school baseball games. They televise them, and I'm the play-by-play. Corby's the color commentary guy, and so I'm excited because our first game is next week, so that'll be fun. And we do several of those, and then if they make the playoffs, we try to get those involved. But our district is fantastic. They have a lot of great things for kids. And speaking of that, that school to prison pipeline that we were referring to earlier.
Yes.
This Valverde High School, the continuation school, a program like this, they have a graphic arts department. They have the video production. They have a lot of really good things for kids who at this continuation school, who for whatever reason couldn't make it at the comprehensive high school. But they go to these things. They get involved in these programs, and the program produces experienced kids who can go out into the workforce with a skill.
It's like trade school in high school.
Exactly.
I think they have a welding program also.
Some of those,
I think they have a welding program also.
Yeah, I think they've instituted. So I guess getting to the point of this school to prison pipeline, this is a nice little barrier because kids learn skills. Many of the kids who do this Teen Vision, who operate the cameras, who do all the behind-the-scenes editing, all that, with that big board and all that stuff that you got to do, really good stuff. They can get hired by news. Many of them have been hired by TV news stations to do that kind of work. So in some cases, those continuation schools, if they don't have something to look forward to, they go the gang route, the drug route typically, and the gang route ends in the prison route.
Yeah, that school changes a lot of lives.
Yeah, it's amazing.
For sure.
It's amazing. They get credit recovery. They get to make up some credits to try to get back on track to graduate.
It's a model continuation school.
Love it. I love it, and I love participating. And it's great to see the kids because as Corby and I, we're on the air and we're all this and that. But it's all that behind-the-scenes work. The guy in the truck directing all this camera now, hit this shot, hit a 2-shot. Did you get that? All that's just really impressive to be around. So kudos to that program and helping kids have a chance to succeed down the road.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. Thanks for coming on.
Hey, man. Thank you.
Yeah, look at Peace. Nice. All right, well, that's going to do it for the show, guys. I hope you got as much out of it as I did. It's always a pleasure having my friend Thomas Gronotte in studio. You see my little girl Luna right here. If you're watching on video, she's always in here with me, my little girl. So, yeah, she's just checking it out. But had a great time with him, and we hit a bunch of stuff, and always useful and always an awesome time talking with the guy, one of my favorite people in the whole world, Mr. Thomas Gronotte. So thank you very much to him and all that. Thank you guys for checking the episode and all the comments and reviews that I got this past week. Certainly helping me out in standings. Make sure that you guys are checking out social media as well, mainly Instagram. Really going to make a huge push for Instagram and see if I could build up some followers and work on possibly getting some money out of this. I could use it. I put a lot of money into the studio. It'd be nice to get a little bit out, and having followers and comments on posts is a huge help. So just a little plea for that. And obviously, I apologize again for the video cutting out on YouTube if you did try and watch it, but in the end it's just the audio that meant the most for this interview, because he had so many powerful things to say. But we're working on it. It's going to get better and better every single time, and hopefully my video doesn't cut out anymore, and I'll be way more cautious of the storage next time. So from me and the little Ridgeback puppers, Luna right here, we hope you got what you came for. See ya!